the Shaolin Kung Fu big flood style fighting style, the stance looks somewhat like this. The stance is taller and less bent down than in a traditional MMA stance, and you're also more flat-footed than in a traditional MMA stance. The hands are at the hips or around the hip area, and you're bladed so that your left side is facing your opponent. When moving in the Shaolin Kung Fu big flood style stance, you want to step first with the foot that is nearest to the direction you're moving. So if you're moving forward, you would step with your left foot first, and if you're moving backwards, you would step with your right foot first. In Shaolin Kung Fu big flood style, the movement is more forward and backwards than it is side to side. So there should be a lot of like bouncing, moving forward and backwards, but not as much circling. When you pivot, you want to pivot off your front leg. So you can pivot around your front leg like this. You can pivot to face your opponent for both offensive attacks and defending, and you can also pivot to gain angles or slip out of range of your opponent. Okay, so now on to the attacks of big flood style. So the first move I'm going to show you is this entry. So you do this entry when your opponent has his left foot forward. So you're in a stance where you're in like a closed stance with your opponent. What you do is you step forward and swing your hand and post on his shoulder. Then, leaning on his shoulder, you want to jump up, swing your leg around into this crouch stance, and elbow. While you elbow, you want this hand to come up the block. And this elbow can target the body or the head, and it can be angled in various different ways to break through your opponent's guard. This is a proactive move. So your opponent, when they're just in their normal stance and you just want something that you can do to your opponent no matter what, you would use this type of move. Other moves are more reactionary. You have to wait for your opponent to do a specific thing and then counter, whereas this is more of like a generic proactive entry move. The next generic proactive entry move in Shaolin Big Flood style is this. So if your opponent is facing, so their right leg is forward, so we're in this open stance together, I'm going to step in with my right leg while hooking, throwing like almost like a punch to his shoulder over here. As I do this, I'm going to collapse down into this stance, and this is going to bring him closer, and it's going to fall down to his back, his butt, or his leg to bring him even closer. This is going to come up to block potential strikes. From here, I'm going to step my left leg forward, swing this arm around, and punch it in the stomach. Okay. Now, if I'm doing this move and my opponent blocks it with his hand, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump up like I normally would, but instead of leaning on his shoulder, I'm going to push down his hand. After I push down his hand, I'm going to swing my arms over. My right arm is going to block his left arm. My left arm is going to catch his right arm between my knees. I'm going to hold him there for just a moment. And I'm going to sink my weight and punch him in the stomach. the left hand is going to connect with my arm, and it's going to block his arms from reaching up to stop the strike. So if I'm here, I come forward, he blocks, I'm going to push it down, and again to this position. Here I'm going to put my weight forward, yeah, right foot forward, and I do this move, and he blocks. What I'm going to do is I'm going to jump up, I'm going to take my arm, and I'm going to entwine this arm while I do my crouch stance elbow. Like that. So those are the two proactive entries, but there's also some reactive entries. So if your opponent is attacking you, and they're attacking you with kind of short shots that aren't really wound up that much and are hard to dodge, and I'm being like smothered, you know, you're punching me, you know, all this stuff, but like I'm trying to counter, but all these shots are relatively short, so I can't just predict it and do a big dodge counter. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fall back like this. Now from here, I'm going to look to see where my opponent is. If my opponent is close to me, then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in and just elbow him. In this case, I would have to like angle up stuff here, but you come in and elbow. If my opponent is far away, then I'm going to spring back and I'm going to reach for a part of his body. I want to clamp down on his body with my hands like this and pull whatever I can grab back and then punch him in the stomach. After I punch him in the stomach, I'm going to go into the series where you punch him in the stomach in this motion, and if he blocks this punch, then I would go into this type of attack. If, while I'm pulling back, he resists the pullback, I can't pull, I'm going to try to pull back, he's going to fail. This time I'm going to pull back while stepping my left foot back. Then I'm going to lift my right foot up with whatever I grabbed onto. I'm going to throw it around into this position. From here, again, I'm going to punch him in the stomach. And of course, if he blocks while I'm punching him in the stomach with this roundabout wind-up punch, then I'm going to go right into this crouching stance elbow. Now, the next move is if my opponent winds up and does a really telegraphed powerful shot. I want to dodge that. The way you dodge that is by throwing your weight back like this, and then coming back up with one hammer fist like this, one hammer fist, and then one hammer fist like this with your leg raise. From there, I want to see where my opponent is. If my opponent is close, then what I want to do is I want to throw my legs down into this position, snap, grab, like grab, not grabbing my fingers, but grabbing by pushing my hands together, whatever part of his body I can get, and then I would just do what I've done before, where you hold it back and punch them, or if I pull it back and they resist, I would step, come up, and then do this entry move. And again, whenever you're doing this like windmill type punch, if your opponent blocks it, then you want to intertwine the arm and go into the this crouching combo. If, however, I'm doing this, my opponent is far away, I want to jump up and then try to catch his hands with the back of my hands like I did before and punch him. So if he winds up and does a big punch, and I dodge, and I I come back, but my opponent's far away. So I'm gonna put myself down. The final entry is if my opponent is shelled up and he's not doing anything. He's like so afraid, he's gonna beat up so bad that he's just shelled up and he's not doing anything. It's a little bit closer. In this case, if his left foot is forward, then I'm going to snap kick him. And the way a snap kick whenever I say by snap kick, I can target the shin, the thigh, the body, the head, the groin, or a straight up snap kick to the head. So those are the 6 variations of snap kick. I'm going to snap kick him. Then, while I'm snap kicking him, my left hand is grabbing him and pulling him to the snap kick. Then I'm going to plant my leg, and I'm going to do a windmill kick like this. Which is going to like tie up his arms and get him in position for the next attack. And what this is going to do is that's going to prime him for those 2 moves. If they hit him, that's great, but really they're just going to be in this tight guard. So really they're supposed to get him occupied. And then I'm going to hit him with this move, where your hands come down like this. So I'm going to kick here, and kick over here, and bring it down here. If his right leg is forward, I'm going to do the same thing, except I'm going to come into with elbow attack instead. So those are the entries to John Kung Fu Big Flood Style. I'm just going to go over just like basically how it works just one more time. So if your opponent has his left foot forward, then you want to come in with this move and try to elbow him. If the elbow is blocked, you're going to go into a punch to the stomach. Whereas if your other opponent's right foot is forward, then you're going to come in and try to punch him in the stomach. But if your punch to the stomach is blocked, you're going to elbow him. Now, there's 2 different punches to the stomach. The first one is the trapped arm punch. The second one is this windmill punch. The windmill punch is the one that you do initially, and then when your opponent blocks it, you hit them with the elbow. Whereas the trapped arm punch is what you do secondly after your opponent blocks your elbow. So they're kind of like 2 different types of, they kind of serve the similar roles in that they're on like both sides of the attack. One of them is the initial, one of them is the secondary, but they're like a different type of motion. Whereas the elbow is the same motion, whether it's on the right side or the left side. Additionally, you have the 2 dodges. On in both dodges, when you clasp hands into this like swinging arm stomach punch, or into the traditional setup swinging arm stomach punch. So if that punch doesn't hit, then you want to go right back to the elbow, because it basically funnels you to what would be like the right side entry, or like the open stance entry. Whereas the difference between the 2 dodges relies on like the distance. So for both dodges, they both go into the same clasped hands entry, but they also have secondary attacks, which go, or not secondary attacks, they also have additional attacks which go right into like the end move, which is the trapped hand punch or the elbow. And that is going to be based on like their distance from you. So if they're closer to you on this one, then you'll do the elbow, and then if they're further away, you'll do the trapped hand motion. Whereas for this one, if they're closer to you, you'll do the trapped hand motion, and if they're further away, you'll just do the punch. And then finally, there's when your opponent is shelled up, the 2 kicks, and then you go right to either the trapped hand punch or the elbow. So it seems kind of, basically what I'm trying to get at, that was very long-winded, but the form is very symmetrical. If you just think of the windmill punch and the trapped arm punch as having the same like place in the form, even though they're different moves with different maneuvers and different things that come after them. If I elbow my opponent or I punch him in the stomach, either with the windmill style punch or the trapped arm punch, then that's great, and I just exit the position. However, sometimes your opponent might block the attacks. So if I try to elbow my opponent and for whatever reason they end up out of range of my elbow and he moves back, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump forward and do a trapped arm punch to the stomach. So do the elbow, they move backwards, I'll come forward, and I do this trapped arm punch to the stomach. If I am punching my opponent's stomach, either with the trapped arm punch or the windmill punch, and they move backwards, or something like this, they move backwards, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my right hand, and as I step my right foot forward, I'm going to block my face and try to move his arms out of the way while throwing an elbow to the left with my left. And then I'm going to take both my hands, I'm going to drop both of them down, try to again catch his hands, step forward again, and throw an elbow with my right. So if I'm here, and get a little bit closer, and I throw this punch, but you move backwards, I'm going to come like this, and then come over here. Okay. Now, if I throw one of my elbows or one of my punches, and my opponent dodges by moving to my left. So I would come here, and I'd go here, and they would come to my left. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to look to see where his hands are. So just put your hands out like this for a second. I'm going to try to take whatever my attack was. Let's move back over here a little bit. Let's take whatever my attack was. I'm going to try to position it so that it's kind of like on top of his hands. Like this or like this. This would be good. And on top of his hands with my my hands kind of like on the inside. So if it's like this, then that's no good because they're on the outside. If they're like this, that's good because it's on the inside. If they're like this, this is kind of okay because you can quickly like fling them down to the inside. But really you want them kind of on top and kind of on the inside, resting like this. If they're kind of like underneath or on the outside or something like that, then the move won't work. So I'm going to expand them, and then I'm going to kick my leg back and spin around while doing this motion with my hands. So you have the stance, you don't have to put your hands out like that anymore. So I come like this, so you dodge to the left, my hands come, and then I'm going to spin around like that while doing that motion with my hands. From here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my weight in, I'm gonna punch the stomach. This punch counts as like a windmill punch. So after I punch them there, if they block it, then that would go like right into the crouch stance outlet. Sometimes I'll do an attack and your opponent might dodge to the right. So they'll go that way. Or yeah, your left. Okay. So I'm here and my opponent dodges to the right. Now at this point actually, you'd be a little bit, because you're really, when I say right or left, I mean like very close to your hips, right or left. If they're out here, they're to my right, but he's still far enough away that I would probably just go for a like one of those step back counters. So when I say like right, I mean like I do the move, because a lot of these moves are very like windy and stuff. So like if you're just punching someone, you would never end up with someone right next to your hip. When you're doing Shaolin Kung Fu, a lot of the moves are really big. So someone might have time to dodge and dodge like really close to your hip and get like, you know, very close to you. So I might come like this, and that would give him enough time to do a dodge where he's all the way over here, you know, not just far back. So if someone's to your right, what you're gonna do is you want to first turn your body and do this motion to tie up his arms. So this motion doesn't have to be really precise or weave in with his arms before you do it like the other one. You just kind of have to do it to just get in the way of his arms. That's you don't have to exactly that much, but then once that happens, I'm gonna push his arms down further by crouching my body and stamping my feet and hitting them with my fists. This isn't attacking his body, it's attacking his arms. And it's flat-footed. From here, what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your hands and you're gonna extend them out and you're gonna scoop your opponent's butt as you step forward into a T-stance. So just, if not, you can show the motion real fast. Well, actually, would you mind just standing over there just so they can see my body real fast? Thanks. So you come here, you smash down on the hands, then I'm going to extend my hands and try to grab his butt. I'm going to scoop my hands like this, and then hold his butt between my arms. And my, when I do this, this foot is on his toes. So when I start off, my feet are flat, but then when I end, my feet are on their toes. I'll show you. So we're here, come around, come down, scoop the butt, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to almost lift them up, bring them back, set them down, and then using that momentum, use my right hand to pull his arm or some other part of his body back to pull him into me, and then punch with my left arm. So the motion would be, I do this, you dodge, I turn, I stamp, I grab the butt, then I lift up, and then I move you, and this arm would pull this down while I punch like this. Now, if if you want to stand up over there, thank you. If I punch him and the punch hits, then that's fantastic. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to swing my arms like this to try to tie up one of his arms while I come down into an empty stance. This is like a wide motion designed to just kind of sweep up whatever you can grab. You don't have to like perfectly line it up. While I'm in my empty stance, you always want to use the light lead foot to kind of jostle around his legs and move them around a little bit to off balance him. And then after that, I'm gonna come up, grab his head, turn it over here, and I'm going to do 2 thrusts with my hands while bringing up my feet. The reason why you bring up your feet is not to do knees, it's so that you have more power for your so you can just quickly bring it down into a into another thrust and stamp into the thrust. And then after my 2 thrusts, I'm going to do a jumping snap kick, which can be targeted towards the body, head, or the chin. And then I'm going to finish that off with my traditional dodge and counter with that. It's a very like cherry on top sequence of moves. In reality, it's probably very difficult to get through all of them, so you might call it quits in the middle, but it does bring you back to you know, an elbow, which is kind of like, in a way, brings it back full circle. So, you know, you try to elbow your opponent, they dodge, and then you do a series of moves to bring it back to the elbow. So that's, you know, if you can get it all the way back to like an, you know, an elbow or a re-attack, that's great, but the entire series might, you know, fall apart a little bit before that. So I just punched them. I think, yeah, don't do that. It's a little bit like that, like, you know, something's going on. I'm gonna go like this to bring him forward. And take my foot, you know, just move his legs around anyway. I'm gonna come up now that he's off balance, grab his head. I'm gonna just bring him over to this side. Then I'm gonna do 2, like this. I'm gonna do 2 of these thrusts, and these are also really just to get him in range of my kick. Because if he's too close, then I'm not going to kick him. If these 2 thrusts are just going to get him in range, I'm going to do my snap kick, and then I'm going to finish that off with the dodge. Maybe, you know, comes into the dodge, and I can, you know, do my elbow or my arm to the windmill punch and get back to where I started from. One more thing. So a lot of times, I don't know, a lot of times, if I do this and your opponent blocks, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same motion, but I'm not going to fall back into the empty stance. Instead, I'm just going to do that, and I'm going to come up. I'm going to do 2 punches. And after my 2 punches, I'm going to do 1 more punch, but then fall back into this dodge. And of course, I can come back like this and try to hit him again with like a punch to the stomach or a or one of those windmill punches. So I would be here, you would have blocked it, I suck you in, come back, and then I bring your head down, these 2 punches, 1 more time, and then I come back here and do this counter. So those are the moves if your opponent dodges your attacks. It's I don't want to kind of go off, you know, talking about, you know, how we try to bring it all back together like I did for the previous section, but basically the theme is that you try to either punch them in the stomach or elbow them, and then when your opponent dodges, you know, you bring it back to punching them in the stomach or elbowing them. For when they dodge straight back, it's very obvious. You know, you elbow them, they dodge, you try to punch them in the stomach. You try to punch them in the stomach, they dodge, you elbow them. For the left dodge and the right dodge, it's like a little bit, bringing it back to the elbow or the stomach punch is a little bit further off, but it's still there. So the overall idea is that, you know, even if it's like takes a lot of steps and you might not get up through all of them, in theory, every time your opponent dodges your stomach punch or your elbow, you should be able to bring it back to attack them. So if a lot of times it might be difficult for you to even make contact with your opponent at all. Do you enter into any of the Kung Fu stuff? So if your opponent is using a lot of lateral motion, they're moving, they're circling, you know, I can't, it's like hard for me to reach in on them to either grab him, you know, with my this move or this move. Then what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to jump to cut him off like this, and then do a hammer fist at his face. And then after my hammer fist, I'm going to try to drop down, punch him in the stomach like this, and then After that, I'm gonna step into either I'm gonna step into one of my Kung Fu entries. So there's 5 of them. So it might be this one, it might be this one, it might be one of the dodges, or it might be the 2 kicks. So I'm gonna basically use those 2 strikes, which are probably not gonna hit. They're probably gonna be kind of blocked or dodged. I'm gonna use them to funnel him into one of my entries. So if my opponent is moving around, and it's like hard for me to well, let's do it over here. So we move around. It's moving around laterally, not moving around back to back. It only works laterally, and it's hard for me to like reach him. Like trying to reach there, and it's not working. I'm gonna try to funnel him, and then from here, now I can step in and hit him with one of my moves, depending on where they were. Sometimes your opponent might also try to avoid contact with you or avoid your entries by clinching up with you. So I'm trying to reach and starts grappling. What I'm going to do in this situation is I'm going to try to, while he's coming in, use my hands to scoop his hands and then twist them back like this, and then punch him with both hands like that to get him off of me, and then enter into one of my attacks. So I'm here, I'm reaching for him, and he's coming in. I'm gonna try to funnel his hands. I did not do a good job catching his hands on that one. It was a little bit sloppy, but basically, come in and try. You're really ripping your hands back and then punching him off of you. Again, this is not really supposed to, maybe, I don't know, maybe you're not supposed to funnel hands, maybe this is just to get more like crank on it. But again, these 2 punches aren't really that much for damage, they're more just to push him off of you, get him blocking so you can do one of your main entries. Your opponent might also be avoiding contact by coming forward and backwards. So there's trying to reach and he's coming backwards and he's coming forward, and instead of not lateral movement but up and down movement. In this case, what I'm going to do is ideally I'm going to wait till when he's coming in to do this, and then use my hands to like almost funnel him in. But if he's just moving backwards a lot, that might not be possible. So you can just go through the motion without actually having to time it with him coming in. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to step back and I'm going to push off. And I'm going to swing my hands like this and like this. And then I'm going to spin around into one of my entries. So if you're moving forward and backwards, and I'm coming to grab you, but like you're staying out of range, You're coming over here, then what I can do is I can come here, and that can get me in the range. Again, to do one of my entries. Your opponent might also stop you from getting his shoulders, which are the proactive attacks, by posting out his hand. So if your opponent posts out with his right hand, it might be hard for me to grab his shoulders. Now, of course, I can always try to slap it down and do this, but really that's more for if I'm coming for his shoulders and he's in a normal stance and we have a lot of tension here. If he really has like a straight hand and every time I come out, he kind of limps it out or slaps my hand away, then it might be difficult. So if my opponent has his hand extended outwards, that's stopping me from doing something, and his left leg is forward, really not his left leg is forward, if his left arm is extended outwards and that's stopping me from getting in, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my body, and I'm going to pinch his arm under my armpit while moving my right hand down. I'm going to block my head like this. I'm going to go into a flat-footed chicken stance is what it's called, but just like basically my feet are going to be flat-footed and I'm going to be squatted down. From here, I'm going to do 3 strikes with pointed fingers, and what that's going to do is kind of like distract him or move him back or keep him off or get him thinking. And then I'm going to step forward with my left into one of my entries. So if you're posting out with your right hand like this, then that's how it would happen. If your opponent, actually in that case, I probably wouldn't do it like that. So if your opponent's posting out the hand and you're reaching for it, and every time they reach for it, they just snap it back, then what I'd probably do is I would probably just come back, get them to snap back, and then come in for the tension. So this only works if your opponent is really retracting their hand a lot, then you just have to like get them to retract it and then come in. If your opponent is just extending the hand, so they're extending the hand, and if it's like solid there while I'm coming in, then that's when you do that move. If your opponent has his other leg forward, or has his other leg extended, then the way I'm going to get in is I'm going to take my right hand, and as I step forward my right leg, I'm going to swing over, I'm going to pull it down to my hip. Then I'm going to do 2 punches like this. The reason why my knees are coming up on these punches is not because it's like a knee and punch attack, it's because bringing the knee up preps you to be able to throw it down and then go into the next attack. So the first one lets you prep into the next punch, and the next one lets you prep into the snap kick. So I'm gonna step forward while pulling the arm down. I'm gonna do 2 punches, and then I'm going to do a jumping snap kick. Jumping snap kick can be targeted towards the body, head, or straight up the boot. So I'm trying to reach around and keep stiff arming. I can come like this, do these 2 punches, then the jumping snap kick, and then after the jumping snap kick, then I can come back into one of my entries. Now, if your opponent avoids your jumping snap kick, then what you want to do is you want to go back to those original 3 ways of closing the distance on your opponent or making more distance on your opponent, in case they do something. So this like hammer fist to the stomach punch, if they're doing lateral movement, this kind of swing your arms motion if they're going back and forth, the double punch thing if they're pitching up with you. So if they block this, and that's what you're gonna do. However, if they dodge this, then the way you're gonna get in on them. If they block this, then that's fine, because you're just gonna use that to go into an entry. But if they dodge this, then you're gonna use those 3, to help close the distance again. If they dodge this motion, you're actually gonna be too like flat-footed and not have enough bounce with you to be able to hit off those moves. So what you're gonna do instead is you're going to wherever they are, they might be dodged to the side, behind you, to the left, or in front of you. You're going to swing your back foot backwards and do an elbow like this into them, like a push up like this. And then you're gonna step in with an entry. If they're to the right, left, or behind you, it's relatively like easy to see how you can do that, because you just kind of like swing your leg behind. If they just straight up dodge going forward, which actually probably that's most likely because you have a good amount of range with this move, then you might have to like step forward to your left first and then twist that. So that's kind of how you get into your entries if your opponent's making it difficult. Just a quick caveat. This move has like crouch stance elbow. I mean, those moves I just talked about have crouch stance elbows, and also a stomach punch. But those that cross stance elbow and that stomach punch are not part of the elbow and like stomach punch series. So if someone like blocks this elbow, you can't go into a like trapped arm stomach punch. You just have it's to close the distance into your original series. And again, if someone blocks this stomach punch, you can't just say, okay, time to do a crouch stance elbow, because it's not like part of the series. You have to go right into the starter moves for the series. you've beaten your opponent enough that you want to deliver a finishing blow, or your opponent does something that's extremely unorthodox that you don't know how to respond to, but you feel like even though it's unorthodox, it's not a good move. Like it's not really a good position and you can just attack him. Then what you want to do is you want to step forward with your right leg, do a jumping snap kick, which can again be targeted towards the body, the head, or right up through the middle to the chin. Then, after the snap kick, you're gonna land and you're gonna throw your left leg to the side, and then you're gonna fling yourself into horse stance, and you're gonna try to use your left leg to hook one of his legs, and so you can deliver a kung fu chamber punch. You can also just do the hooking leg motion with your left leg into a horse stance chamber punch without the snap kick, but the snap kick a lot of times, helps, usher in the momentum to deliver the blow. So my opponent's here. Actually, let me do it from the side so you can see how the leg connects. So let's pretend you drop your hands and I don't know, do a bad move that sucks. Okay. And I could come here, I come out here, and I could, hook his leg here. I could hook his leg here. I might not even really hook his leg at all. I might just, wing it around here, try to get a connection. And I'm going to do a horse stance chamber punch to the stomach. You can do as many as you want here, but you probably don't want to do too many because you might get countered because your hands are going to be down. And that's like Kung Fu, or the Shaolin Kung Fu, big flood styles finishing move. And you can do it whenever you see an opportunity, even in the middle of other moves. You can just step forward, do a snap kick, or go right into the chamber punch. So defense in Shaolin Kung Fu. A lot of the attacks from the series are very handsy. So there's gonna be a lot of contact with your opponent. So you kind of just have to maneuver your body and make micro adjustments to block your opponent's shots while you're going through these attacks. And a lot of the attacks also have built-in blocks that you can use to block as well. Really, while you're in the middle of an attack in Shaolin Kung Fu or Shaolin Big Flood style, there isn't much kind of slipping or dodging, just because you always really want your torso to be kind of straight down to generate the, or just to do Big Flood style in Kung Fu, in a Shaolin Kung Fu in general. It's a style where it really relies on a straight back, so a lot of dodging and stuff, unless absolutely necessary, isn't really recommended. From this position on the outside position, the defensive maneuvers are going to be, of course, just moving in to stealth attacks, moving out to avoid attacks, as well as blocking and dodging. Now, the blocks that you're going to use aren't necessarily intuitive blocks where you bring your hands up. They're going to be the Shaolin Kung Fu blocks. So the Big Flood style blocks. So the two blocks that are used are the two proactive entry moves. So this move and then this move. So if you feel like you're being attacked, you can kind of block like this and hold this position for a little bit, and either use that to entry or just use it to block if you feel like you don't have a chance on entry. And then again, the dodges, they're not necessarily going to be intuitive dodges, they're going to be the Big Flood style dodges. So you're going to move back like this, and then move back like this. Now of course, if you're really desperate, an intuitive dodge might be a good idea, but for the most part you want to use the Shaolin Kung Fu blocks and dodges to defend, as well as just the movement to defend yourself.